Tamil Nadu today passed a resolution against the union government's proposed amendments to the Waqf Act. Chief Minister M.K. Stalin called this bill a direct threat to the rights of minorities and the powers of Waqf boards across the country. The resolution claimed that this new bill will weaken state Waqf boards, it will interfere in the administration of Waqf properties, and eventually the minority community will be at the receiving end. It's an attack on constitutional rights of minorities and their institutions, alleged the DMK, and they were not alone in that opposition. Surprisingly, as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, even the AIADMK is backing this resolution. Why that's surprising is that because speculation is rife that AIADMK could be returning to the NDA fold, reuniting with the BJP ahead of the state elections next year. The speculation has been rife because there was a meeting of Edappadi Palanisamy and Union Home Minister Amit Shah just 2 days ago here in the national capital. Now, as far as the Waqf Bill is concerned, that's set to be tabled in the Parliament sometime next week. It aims to amend the Waqf Act of 1995. It aims to redress the challenges in regulation and management of these Waqf properties. But the intention of the Modi government is what the opposition is questioning, which is why we're seeing protests both inside the Parliament as well as outside. In fact, a massive nationwide stir has been launched across the country. We're seeing these protests out on streets against this proposed Waqf Amendment Bill by the AIMPLB. The protest is being led by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. It has complete backing from mainstream political parties from within the opposition. While the Congress, the Samajwadi Party, the Aam Aadmi Party, the TMC all joined this protest of the AIMPLB here in the national capital at Jantar Mantar a week ago. Yesterday, we had RJD leaders Lalu Prasad Yadav, we had Tejasvi Yadav at the Muslim group's protests in Patna. So as we see a united opposition come together against the central government, and now states like Tamil Nadu also passing resolutions like this, is this going to be an uphill battle for what the government calls a major reform?
வக்ஃப் சட்டத்தை ஒன்றிய அரசு திருத்த நினைக்கிறது. இதன் மூலம் மத்திய வக்ஃப் கவுன்சில் மற்றும் மாநில வக்ஃப் வாரியங்களின் கட்டமைப்பு மாற்றப்பட்டு அரசாங்கத்தின் கட்டுப்பாடு அதிகரிக்கிறது. இது வக்ஃப் நிறுவனங்களின் சுயாட்சியை பாதிக்கும். இதன் மூலமாக வக்ஃப் நிலவரம் குறித்து முடிவு செய்யும் அதிகாரம் வக்ஃப் வாரியத்திடமிருந்து நீக்கப்பட்டுள்ளது. அரசு சொத்து என்று அடையாளம் காணப்பட்ட அல்லது அறிவிக்கப்பட்ட வக்ஃப் சொத்து இந்த சட்டம் தொடங்குவதற்கு முன் அல்லது பின் என்றாலும் வக்ஃப் சொத்தாக கருதப்படாது என்று இந்த சட்டம் கூறுகிறது. இது அரசுக்கு சொத்துக்களை மறுவகைப்படுத்தப்படும் அதிகாரத்தை அளிக்கிறது. 5 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு குறையாமல் இஸ்லாமிய பின்பற்றிய ஒரு நபர் மட்டும் வக்ஃப் அறிவிக்க முடியும் என்று கட்டுப்படுத்துகிறது.
So is this bill then a reform, or is it intrusive and regressive and takes away all control from Muslim groups as is being alleged? Well, here are the two sides of the story. The central government argues that the amendments to the Waqf Bill are designed to benefit marginalized Muslims. It offers reforms that could bring positive change to their community, is what the government says. In contrast, the opposition and groups like the AIMPLB, they view this bill as an affront to their community. They say that this poses a threat to their rights, to their autonomy, particularly towards their religious properties. The central government maintains that it has consulted Muslim leaders and organizations during the drafting of this bill. It was then referred to JPC as well, which had consultations with several groups for over 5 months. The centre says that all of these inputs were considered before this draft bill was rewritten, was then decided to be brought into the parliament. Muslim groups, however, argue that there is no meaningful consultation that were conducted. Even opposition MPs had said that this JPC on the Waqf Bill was nothing but a farce. They suggested that their concerns were either ignored or were overlooked completely. The government claims that the bill will extend rights to those who have historically been excluded, offering a sense of empowerment to disadvantaged individuals within the community, like women. Muslim groups say that the bill is not about empowerment at all, but it allows government control over Waqf properties, effectively undermining the autonomy of religious institutions. The government will be able to usurp Waqf land, is the allegation that they're making. The government insists that the bill will not interfere with the freedom of religious bodies. It emphasizes that this is not an attempt to impose control over any religious practices. But that is not enough to convince those critics of the bill. They argue that this would encroach upon the religious freedom of Muslims by giving the government undue influence over decisions that are to be made by their religious communities. Is that really true? And what are we going to be seeing when this bill is brought about in the parliament sometime next week is what we're given to understand. Let's open that up here on The Right Stand. Shadad Poonawalla, national spokesperson of the BJP, is with us. Kamru Chaudhary, political analyst. Vishnu Shankar Jain, senior lawyer and leader of the Congress. America Narayanan is with us as well. Mr. Narayanan, let me begin by asking you, do you think the existing mechanism that we have as far as the Waqf Act goes, which this new bill hopes to replace, do you think that's enough? Do you think it does the job well of what it intends to do?
Well, first thing is the new bill is a regressive bill, goes against the Constitution of India, of secularism, and it tries to divide the country further, and that has been the BJP's agenda. So it helps the BJP agenda of dividing the country. That is why even BJP's potential allies in Tamil Nadu are getting away and opposing this bill. This bill, I don't understand. Even in Tamil Nadu, I don't think the government of Tamil Nadu in several ways are interfering also on the religious activities of Hindu. But having said that, even in Tamil Nadu and any other state, in the management of Hindu religious temples, you cannot have an other religious person in the bill. This bill, please let me finish up. This bill provides gives non-Muslims to be the part of the Waqf board, which is absolutely wrong. Every religion has to be managed by those people in that religion. In that alone is good enough to put this bill into a thing. Second thing, as you rightfully pointed out, it is only a farce when they say they listen. Listening is just not hearing, but listening actively and taking input and making changes to the bill. That has not been done. As rightfully pointed out by the Chief Minister, the several members of parliament were not allowed to even talk, and they had to walk out during the JPC. So the sum and substance is the objective of this bill is to divide the country in the name of religion, which is the BJP's agenda.
Mr. Narayanan, you haven't answered my question. My question was simple. Do you think the existing mechanism, the existing 1995 Act is enough? Does it solve the problem that many Muslim groups, many Muslim organizations, many Muslims have cited? Do you think there is no reason for change at all?
No, there can always be improvement in terms of including women into the getting the benefits and whatnot. I think that's always welcome, but not at the expense of taking the religious activity and putting it where non-religious people who don't belong to that religion, and there are several amendment features which are absolutely wrong, and hence it's regressive. It doesn't mean that whatever the change is, every change is wrong.
Okay, so I'm glad that you agree that there is need for change, at least that there is need for something to change, because within the Muslim community, several people have come out and complained that their lands are being taken by Waqf boards, which they don't have any more access to, that there isn't enough income that is being generated out of these properties. The Waqf board is the third largest landowner in the country on defense and railways. But because you spoke about the inclusion of non-Muslims in the board, let me get in Vishnu Shankar Jain on that. Vishnu Shankar Jain, if temples are not allowed to have non-Hindus, as we've seen most recently in the Tirupati Tirumala temple, why is it that Waqf board should have non-Muslims?
First of all, this simile is erroneous, because if you will see the various endowment acts, for example, Karnataka Hindu Religious Endowment Act 1997, you will see the Tamil Nadu Endowment Act, you will see the Andhra Pradesh Endowment Act, many endowment act in the southern regions as well as in various other parts of the country, and UP Kashi Vishwanath Act 1981, they have the provision where the government will take over the management of the temple and government will appoint the archaks and the priests, which is far more worse than the present amendment bill which we are talking about under the Waqf Act. In the three southern regions which I have spoken right now, in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, the Hindu Endowment Act gives a power to the state government to acquire a temple on the ground of mismanagement. And the government will only appoint the archak and the pujaris. So this provision is not there in the Waqf Act. So if the representative of the government is there, or a non-Muslim is there in the Waqf board, it does not violate the provisions of the Waqf Act 1995. Rather, it will give a transparency so far as the provisions of Waqf Act 1995 are concerned and the functioning of the Waqf board is concerned.
And speaking of transparency and accountability, Kamru Chaudhary, this is something that the Justice Sachar Committee back in 2006 had pointed out, that A, there wasn't enough revenue that was coming out of the amount of land and properties that Waqf boards had. As far as the committee was concerned, they said there were encroachments that were listed. Hundreds of such instances had come to the fore where unauthorized occupation of Waqf land was being seen, and that marginalized Muslims were not getting what was rightfully theirs. This is not the BJP or the new bill that's talking about this. This was an observation made back in 2006. So should something not change then?
Yeah, absolutely, Poonam. Even we, as a part of a delegation, went and met the JPC in Calcutta and voiced our concern about the contents of the bill. We have cited the same problem that you are quoting out here. That look, Waqf board needs tremendous reforms. It needs reforms so that the corruption in the Waqf board by the CEO or the members of the Waqf board who are being so far appointed by the government, the process needs to be changed so that the real beneficiaries of the Waqf board need to be to get the benefits out of the Waqf properties as such. You must understand that the Waqf as such is an institution which is a very much an integral part of Islamic faith and practice. And none of the government or the appointees from the government have any right to interfere which way the property will land. Let me cite you a very small example from the very recent past. Suppose, let's say, according to Vishnu Shankar Jain, a government representative who may be a Muslim, who may not be a Muslim or a non-Muslim is appointed to educate a property of dispute which is a Waqf board. And let's say that person is the same DM of Sambal. We all know how opinionated and how biased and how vindictive the DM of Sambal is. We all know what will be the result at the end of the day. So now do you expect me that a property which has been bestowed on the community by my forefather will be educated by a bigoted person like the Sambal DM? No, absolutely no. My outrage is against that clause that is there. And secondly, Poonam, permit me 10 more seconds when I want to stake a strong objection to your headlines tonight. When you said the Waqf is an appeasement above reform, I'm very sorry. The framing of your debate implies that any support for Waqf institutions or any protest against the Waqf Act is an act of appeasement rather than a legitimate engagement with the community concerns.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Everybody is well within their rights to protest. The opposition is it can be doing that. The opposition can do it in the parliament, out on the streets if they want to. But the point is there legitimate reason to believe that it is detrimental, like you're saying? Now, you quoted an example of the Sambal DM or the Sambal cop who's been making comments. Now, that is such a hypothetical situation. Should we be basing our apprehensions on what a situation may or may not be, or restrict it to facts which do show that Waqf boards across the country have been encroaching upon land that has been claimed by several other people as legitimately theirs?
That's a narrative that has been built up, Poonam, that the Waqf boards are
There are 13,000 litigations that are on, sir, in the courts of this country. Are they all just narratives?
Property litigations are there across India? Civil court disputes on properties. There are millions and millions of property disputes are there. This Waqf property dispute can always be educated by a court of law. But I will not agree to the fact that this JPC which was constituted did not consult any of the 57 Muslim countries which have got management committees managing their own Waqf boards, Waqf properties. Why not? When our Indian constitution has been framed by taking in parts from the British and the American constitution.
Sure.
So why not consult the Waqf?
But there are global examples. There are global examples that have been cited by the government, even in Parliament, when they were talking about this particular bill when it came last time around. After which it was decided to send it to the JPC. The JPC has members of the opposition as well. Stakeholders like the AIMPLB were brought to the negotiating table by the JPC as well. When the bill was brought in last time around, Kamru Chaudhary, in Parliament, the opposition said that we weren't consulted, send it to the JPC. It was sent to the JPC. Now the JPC has concluded its exercise after 5 months. Now the opposition says, oh, but this exercise was completely a farce. It can't be my way or highway all the time. But let me get in Shehzad Poonawala on this. Shehzad Poonawala, as far as the opposition is concerned, and it seems to be a united one at that, this bill infringes on the basic tenets of the constitution. It is divisive. So maybe the BJP's heart is in the right place to say that yes, reform is required, but because of BJP's track record, it's hard to take you at face value, is what the opposition says.
Poonam, there are two ways we can do this debate. I have heard everybody out for the last 10 minutes without uttering even one word. So if I go and counter the points that have been made in the course of this debate, all I request is that I am not interrupted, otherwise the entire debate makes no sense. So I hope with that caveat, I will be able to allowed to complete without others jumping in. First of all, this is the exact same narrative, Hindu-Muslim divide, unconstitutional hai, that was used during the CAA law. You remember what they said? कि CAA आएगा, मुसलमानों की नागरिकता छिन जाएगी. It had nothing to do with Indian Muslims. In fact, Indian Muslims were not mentioned in that law. Yet you had them rambling on and on. Now you have CAA implemented in this country. How many Muslims have lost their नागरिकता? Similarly, the same narrative is being created that वक्फ आ जाएगा, वक्फ से हमारी ज़मीनें और मस्जिदें छिन जाएगी. I want to ask them that Sachar Committee report, 1976 report of Rahman Khan Commission in 2008, all of them said that non-functioning mutawallis need to be regulated, management of records should be done efficiently, non-Muslim technical expertise should be used. Sachar Committee report says this. Organizational reform should be done to strengthen the CWC and state Waqf boards to make them more inclusive. Bring them under auditing and transparent management is required, and that the income generated should be at least 12,000 crores, because the Waqfs have totally 37 lakh acres, by the way. That's the figure that has come out recently, and the generation of income is 163 crores. So this is not between Poonam and Kamru Zaman. It is not between Poonam and Shehzad. It is actually between people like Shehzad, who's saying that the Pasmandas, the Garib, the Yuva, the Anath, the Beva, the poorest Muslims should get the benefit, versus a Kamru Zaman who's colliding or colluding with the land grabbers in the Muslim community and handing over the land to them. It's a debate between those two sections, not Hindu and Muslim. Now let me come to the last 2-3 points and sum up my points. First of all, he said that Waqf is essential to Islam. No, it is not essential to Islam. Which surah is it mentioned in the Quran? By the way, Oman, Egypt, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they don't have Waqf acts. And by the way, Waqf acts are not mentioned. One second, sir, I did not interrupt you.
Kamru Chaudhary, let him finish. I'll come back to you for a rebuttal and give you your time. Let's not interrupt each other. It doesn't take the debate anywhere. Please, Kamru Chaudhary, I request you. I'll give you your time to rebut. Let him finish.
Thank you. There is a difference. If Mr. Kamru Zaman Chaudhary, the first question is that tell me the chapter and verse in which Waqf is mentioned specifically in the Quran. It's not. Point number 2, there is a difference between a masjid management committee, which will obviously be of Muslims, but a Waqf board, which is a statutory creation which can have MPs. Similarly, like a temple management committee has only Hindus, but a temple board or a temple trust many a times, including the Tarakeshwar board, has Hindus, has non-Hindus as well. Last and final point. Here you have a situation where those who swear by the Samvidhan are saying that pass a resolution in a state assembly about a law that deals with is dealt with by the center. Here you have a situation where people are saying there will be insurgency and there will be civil war. Here is a situation where you are saying that there will be Shaheen Bagh kind of situation. This is not Samvidhanic. You are trying to use blackmail, anarchy and threats to overrun the system. And lastly, what is all this outrage about? Can Kamru Zaman Chaudhary or Mr. Narayan, and this is a specific question to which they should answer, where is the draft on which they are making all these conclusions? The last draft was a 2024 draft, which was introduced in Parliament, sent to the JPC. The JPC has come out with a report. The report has neither been accepted nor been rejected. The report will then lead to another bill being tabled in Parliament. That hasn't come as yet. So what are they saying is unconstitutional? What are they saying is communal? Which provisions are they objecting to?
So, Kamru Chaudhary, that brings me back to the hypothetical situations that we were discussing. Are we basing all of this on situations that may or may not arise? Are there any clauses, Kamru Chaudhary, that are specifically talking about how there will be more government control and that Waqf boards in respective states will have no power? Is that in black and white anywhere?
Okay, let me tell you first thing first. When Shehzad mentioned that none of the Islamic countries have got the Waqf boards or Waqf like anything that is managing the Waqf property. For your information, Turkey has got a general directorate of foundations which manages all the Waqf properties.
Why are you lying?
You only are lying. You told that you did not have any Waqf boards in other
I
Islamic
did not
countries.
say none. I said countries like Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait don't have a Waqf Act. Why don't you open the ear ka parda and listen? आप पर्दा गिरा कर ही बैठते हैं क्या हर जगह?
ना सुनो ना भाई शहजाद भाई, मेरा चूल जो है ना थोड़ा कम है, आपका चूल ज्यादा है, इसीलिए आपका ब्रेन का जो है ना ब्रेन वेव्स जो है थोड़ा कम है.
Okay, let's
Don't try to argue on
not
that.
get personal,
Don't
and
try to
let's stick to the subject at hand. Shehzad Poonawalla and Kamru Chaudhary, I request both of you, please. Let's not digress. Let's not get down to name calling and making it personal. Let's stick to the subject at hand, please.
Yeah, Poonam, why I am outraged against Bharatiya Janata Party's intentions, I will rather tell. Let me cite you the example that Shehzad cited about the Citizenship Amendments Act. Now, what happened exactly? Why I was spooked about CA and the NRC exercise? Why? Because Amit Shah on the floor of the parliament said, "Pehla NRC hoga, fir CA hoga." Is that right or wrong? Am I speaking lies out here? The Home Minister of the country, he only first gaslighted the entire population of the country, and a live example in Assam after the NIC exercise, where 20 lakh people were denied the citizenship because they could not prove their NRC. Now, out of those 20 lakh, all the Hindus have received their citizenship, whereas the Muslims are still languishing in the detention centers. Now, my intention point out here about the Waqf Amendment Act is that when the stakeholders in the Waqf Act raised some objection in the JPC, none of the points, whether it from the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, whether it from political representations, whether it from NGO representations, none was taken into consideration, and the bill was being supposed to be bulldozed inside the parliament through a majoritarian vote. Now the entire country is against, rather I will say the secular minded people who do not have any intention of politics, and the Muslim community in general are anguished and frustrated and up in arms against this act just for one simple reason. Do not treat as a Waqf as a real estate in the country. These are all religious endowments donated for the benefit of the community.
Sure.
Don't try to
but are they being used
Waqf
for the
amendment.
benefit of the community? That's the question that's being raised. Is there enough revenue that is coming out of a entity that owns land, which is the third largest landowner in the country after defense and railways? That's a question that's being asked as well. But Shehzad, quick rebuttal before I get in America and Iran as well.
1 second, just 1 second. I am going to quote back to you what Kamru Zaman Chaudhary said in the last line. He said that the entire Muslim community is agitated against the Waqf Act. Where is this goddamn Waqf Act? There is no Waqf Act. After the JPC has come out, a new law that needs to be drafted and needs to be cleared by cabinet and introduced in parliament. Has it happened? So what are you outraging on? And secondly, sir, you have said NRC in Assam. NRC in Assam was put. Please, sir, stop interrupting. I don't interrupt you.
Let him finish, please. I don't have enough time left on this. Let him finish, please. I need to get in the other two gentlemen in as well. Shehzad, quick rebuttal, please.
Look at the kind of misinformation that is spread on a channel like this. He said that the NRC in Assam was done by the center or by the Supreme Court had ordered it. If you have a problem with the NRC in Assam, go take it up with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court had ordered the NRC in Assam. And in the entire country, there has been no NRC. Where is the NRC draft? पर कुछ नहीं, कोई एक मुद्दा बना के emotionally blackmail करना है.
NRC होगा, फिर CA होगा. Why did he say?
You said NRC in Assam.
Gaslight the Indians. It was a simple exercise.
Your ears were closed when Prime Minister was speaking.
No, my ears, mouth, eyes and everything is open. मेरा मुंह अब ज्यादा खोलने लग गया, इसलिए शहजाद भाई थोड़ा तकलीफ तो होगा बॉस, क्योंकि आज भी जो भी रिपोर्ट्स आ रहे हैं यहाँ पे हिंदुस्तान के बारे में बड़ा शर्मनाक है रिपोर्ट.
प्रॉब्लम यही है कि आप बिना
let's get this back on track. America and Iran, as far as the Waqf Amendment Bill is concerned, we still haven't. Okay, Kamru Chaudhary, just a second, please. America and Iran, we still haven't seen the new draft in Parliament. It hasn't been tabled yet. We don't know what amendments have been made after the JPC exercise. Should we perhaps wait for that to come out rather than have this kind of narrative being built up that one particular community is being targeted with this bill? Maybe wait for the facts to come out, and if it is what the opposition says it is, then your stand would be vindicated too. But why can't we just wait for the facts to come out first? Why can't we wait for that draft to be tabled?
First thing is, we know what BJP has done, what their history is, so we know what they're going to do. The purpose of the opposition and secular and smart people is to prevent this, because they have brutal majority in the parliament and they're able to pass anything and say this is a law. We in the opposition have to bring in everything and get the public, so it's an appropriate forum, and they have not given us a fair chance, even in the Joint Parliamentary Committee. They don't even listen to the MPs, leave alone the common man. So the only choice that the opposition have is to go to the public and create a public opinion against this illegal, immoral, and opposed to public policy law, number one. Number two, CAA, yes, it has not affected the people who are already Indian citizens. However, it discriminates. The only reason I oppose CAA is discriminates somebody in the basis of religion. A Muslim religious person who is seeking citizenship goes through a different line than a Hindu or a Christian, and that is wrong. That's what the whole the purpose is. We should all be treated the same.
But that's not what CAA intended to do. There were certain countries that were brought in under the purview of the CAA for a reason. It's not that citizenship to any other Muslim member who was trying to get citizenship legally was not allowed. That there was another act, there is another act that is still in existence in this country, which would give the same citizenship to irrespective of what religion that person comes from. But as far as the Waqf bill is concerned, Shehzad Poonawalla, the allegation is that the government, the BJP, the NDA has brute majority, so you can push through with a bill, and that's what the allegation has been on multiple other bills in the past as well. But we've seen even the second half of the budget session, which is almost about to end, and that bill still hasn't been tabled. Why is that?
Well, they know that the people don't like it.
First of all,
the government on the different, and make sure they bring in the appropriate
first of
things.
all,
Sure.
may I complete?
Sure. So if deliberations
Poonam,
are
may I speak?
America and Iran, so if deliberations are being done and if the government is taking enough and appropriate time to do it, then isn't that the right way to go forward? But anyway, Shehzad, go ahead.
Poonam, if I would not be interrupted, it would be a better debate.
Go ahead, please.
Look, it makes no sense because if he wanted to bulldoze this bill, and if he wanted to Poonam, it is really rude. I listen to others. Others are constantly interrupting when I'm speaking.
Go ahead, Shehzad. I've tried to tell everybody to keep this civil and get to the point. Please, I have very limited time on this. I have very limited time. Shehzad, please make your point.
Yeah,
please
I understand. Look, the point is that if it needed to be bulldozed, why would it be sent to a JPC, and why would the JPC be given an extension? It would have been passed then and there. Point number two, look, the point is that what has he said about the CA? In 1950s, we gave Nepali Hindus a special provision for citizenship. We gave it to the Lankan Tamils also. It's not the first time that a preferential route has been created for certain persecuted communities around India for them to gain citizenship. So, by the way, in the 2011 report of the parliament that Pranab Mukherjee headed, he had advocated for the same thing for the minorities of Bangladesh, Pakistan and Afghanistan, including Mahatma Gandhi. So, are you condemning them? Point is not that. The point is that the Congress party just needs a new issue to do bhadkana for the Muslim community because it is about vote bank ka bahana. It is the vote bank that they are eyeing, and therefore in the name of Waqf, something that needed to be reformed long ago. And if Waqf is such an integral part of Islam and should not be touched with, then why were you allowing the 2013 amendment? Why did you allow the 1954 amendment? At that time, amending the Waqf Act was perfectly fine.
Sure.
But today the government can't do it.
No, so reform is required is what both the gentlemen on this panel agree with, Shehzad, as far as reform is concerned. But the way the BJP is going about it, that is what is questionable, they say. But let me give the last word to Vishnu Shankar Jain, and I want to speak about legality here. If the bill is passed by Parliament, if it is ratified, if it does become a law, will it stand judicial scrutiny? Because there are several within the opposition, several Muslim groups who are ready to challenge it because they say it's against the very basic tenet of the constitution.
See, I feel that if this bill is passed, definitely it will pass the test of judicial scrutiny, because in the present amendment bill, various draconian provisions like section 40, which gave unfettered powers to the Waqf board to declare any property as Waqf property, has been declared as has been repealed in the present amendment bill. So I think there can be no argument so far as section 40 is concerned. So far as other amendments are concerned, where the one member, which is one of the most important amendments, was under section 85 in the Waqf tribunal, one member has to be from an Islamic scholar. He has to be an Islamic scholar to be a part of Waqf tribunal. So that has been repealed in the present amendment bill. So all these amendments which have been done, they are ineffective according to our demand, but they will definitely pass the judicial scrutiny because they are in tune with the provisions of the Constitution of India. They are in tune with the provisions of Article 14, 25 and 26 of the Constitution of India.
So we'll see what happens when the bill is tabled in Parliament, whether it passes the scrutiny of the Parliament, the elected representatives of this country and of the courts as well. But I have to leave it there. I thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us here on The Right Stand. It is time for a quick break, but on the other side, we'll get to the big debate that's erupted over the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom report that once again has decided to tag India as a country of particular concern. India, of course, has dismissed that as propaganda. We'll get you that debate after this quick break.
सस्ते वाले
Donald Trump says China could get a discount on tariffs if it agrees to a US takeover of TikTok. He floated the idea in comments Wednesday.
Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok.
TikTok parent firm ByteDance has an April 5th deadline to find a non-Chinese buyer for the short video app. Otherwise, it will face a US ban over national security concerns. That had been due to kick in just before Trump took office, but the new president delayed enforcement until April. With some 170 million users in the US, TikTok's fate is a big concern for many Americans. But getting Beijing's approval for any deal has always looked like a sticking point. Trump has repeatedly used tariffs as a bargaining chip, and has imposed a new 20% levy on Chinese exports since returning to power. Now he thinks China might find a discount offer tempting.
Sounds like something I'd do.
Vice President J.D. Vance has said he expects the general terms of an agreement to be in place by April 5th. There was no immediate comment on Trump's incentive offer from TikTok.
Another round of tariffs from President Trump before the big one due on April the 2nd. Trump has announced now a 25% tariff on all car imports into the US that he said will go into effect on April the 2nd, and that he would begin to start charging the following day. These tariffs would be on top of the tariffs already in place and already announced. The US administration believes that this tax on automobiles will bring in at least $100 billion of new revenue every year, and Trump has said these taxes on automobiles will be permanent. To follow will be tax benefit offers to American buyers of cars built in the US. But this is not going to be a simple and straight tariff. A lot of the cars imported into the US come from Canada and Mexico, and these have components made in the US. And that, he said, will be proportionally factored into the 25% tariff. The tariffs will be reduced in proportion to the value of an imported car's American-built components. This opens up a nightmare world of certification and accounting. On the other hand, to add to this, the tariff will apply to non-American components of cars built in the US. This would then be a decision particularly hard to implement. It is not clear who will police this, who will carry out inspection and certification of every car or even every lot of cars along these lines, and what the cost of all this would add up to. The automakers most severely hit will be from Mexico, where the US imported about 3 million cars last year, worth about $78.5 billion. Then Japan and South Korea with about 1.5 million cars each sent to the US, Canada with 1 million, Germany with 500,000, and as expected, the German cars have been on average the costliest. These 500,000 were worth about $25 billion. Exporters in all of these countries could now see a significant fall in sales, and consumers in the US a significant rise in the price of cars, which could lead to far reduced sales, which would hardly help the US economy. The silver lining on Wednesday was the announcement by Trump that come April the 2nd, he is inclined to be lenient with many countries, and more lenient than he thinks they have been with the US. And many no doubt hope that will include India.
Donald Trump says China could get a discount on tariffs if it agrees to a US takeover of TikTok. He floated the idea in comments Wednesday.
Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok.
TikTok parent firm ByteDance has an April 5th deadline to find a non-Chinese buyer for the short video app. Otherwise, it will face a US ban over national security concerns. That had been due to kick in just before Trump took office, but the new president delayed enforcement until April. With some 170 million users in the US, TikTok's fate is a big concern for many Americans. But getting Beijing's approval for any deal has always looked
Thank you for staying with us. You're on the right stand. The United States Commission on International Religious Freedom recently released another report. They claim that minorities in India are facing deteriorating treatment. It recommended sanctions against India's spy agency RNAW and over their alleged involvement in the assassination plots of Khalistani separatists. The Commission recommended that India be classified as a country of particular concern. The report has been strongly rejected by India. The Ministry of External Affairs accused the panel of undermining the country's reputation as a stronghold of democracy. It also called for USCIRF to be designated as an entity of concern. MEA spokesperson Randeep Jaiswal said that this report follows a pattern of presenting biased and politically driven evaluations. Now, what's interesting is that this group appointed a Pakistani-American activist named Asif Mahmood as one of its commissioners just last year. He has been accused of peddling conspiracy theories against India. He's also been accused of meddling in India's affairs, speaking about Kashmir when no questions were asked of him. The question, though, here remains that even as Donald Trump is about to wage war on the deep state and what he calls his woke politics in the American political system, is that apparatus still active? Is this a proof of diplomatic muscle flexing? Is that what is happening here? That's what we ask our guest tonight. Kamru Chaudhary, political analyst, continues to be with us. Senior fellow of ORF, Sushant Sareen, is with me. Sushant Sareen, does this report come as a surprise to you? For years in a row, this particular organization has been claiming that minorities are under threat in India. They've asked for sanctions. In fact, in this report, they also say that a review of FATF is perhaps also required as far as India is concerned.
Look, number one, I don't think anybody takes the USCIRF report seriously, partly because it's utterly tendentious, especially in the case of India, for example. They talk about CAA, which only fast tracks citizenship for people from countries in which persecution of Hindus has become a norm. What did the United States do recently in South Africa? When there were reports that the government in South Africa was expropriating farms of white farmers, what was the offer made by the United States to the white South Africans? Similarly, there were other instances where the United States itself has made rules for fast-tracking citizenship or giving sanctuary. For example, in the case of Ukraine, they gave sanctuary to those people. Why haven't the Europeans given refuge to the Rohingyas or somebody else? So, one, this is entirely one-sided, which is why it's not taken seriously. Secondly, I think the people who are involved in framing of the report have very, very dubious credentials. You've just named one, but there are others below these guys with very dubious credentials, including some people from India who apparently assist the USCIRF. That is the second problem with this report. The third problem is that they make certain recommendations which do not hold any water. For example, if they want to impose some kind of sanctions on India, they are most welcome. But then there will be certain repercussions on the United States itself, which is why the US will not do it. Similarly, when you talk about the kind of stuff that is there in this report, this, unlike countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh, from where there has been an exodus of minorities, and there are pogroms, open pogroms and forced conversions taking place, there is not a single instance like that out here. Now, am I saying that there are no social tensions in India? Far from it. But those social tensions are not one-sided. For example, I believe just today or yesterday in Malda, there has been rioting by a Muslim mob against the Hindu community out there. Now, will the USCIRF take that into account? Will it blame, for example, the Trinamool government for orchestrating those riots? This happens. It happened in the past. It happened in the past when the Congress was in power, when virtually every year, every second year, there used to be a major riot in one or the other part of the country. And it used to happen and nobody ever really, got punished for it. And nobody kept raising that issue like the way the 2002 Gujarat riots have been raised. So, these are reports which are part of the kind of agenda which the previous regime in the United States was trying to peddle. Maybe the next time the report comes out, it might not have the kind of stuff which is there in this particular report. It might be a little more sober and sensible rather than this tendentious kind of a report that has been published this time.
Well, one can only hope that does change now with regime change there in the United States. But Kamru Chaudhary, as far as this particular report is concerned, and we've seen this every single year, every time this report comes, make such baseless allegations against India, against certain individuals here in the country. We've seen several leaders within the opposition come and use this report as the Bible to try and target the central government. Well, sure, ask questions of the central government, you're well within your rights to do that. But to use this report to base that argument on a report which has, like Sushant Sareer also pointed out, dubious credentials.
Well, Poonam, basically it's very wrong to say dubious report, because you can take and accept any report you like, you can discount any report that you don't like. That's a common narrative of people who want a one-sided narrative to be peddled in India. But we, as a Muslim in India, do I accept what's written in that report? Yes, of course, some parts of it. Do I equate that with what's happening exactly in India? Is the state a sponsor to these hate crimes that are happening across the length and breadth of India? Yes. Are there instances where the state has actively involved itself in peddling a vilification campaign against a particular community in the country? Yes, of course. And it's none from the bottoms up. It's always from the top down. Even the Prime Minister of India in an election rally in Banswara, let me cite this example, where he has accused a particular community, let me name it, the Muslim community, as those who have more children and who are goosepaitias. Even the Home Minister has labelled the minorities as termites. Recently, just yesterday only in Sambal, the CEO of the Sambal, being a police officer, he said that no, we will not allow Eid namaz to be offered on the street nor on your home terraces. What is this?
That was not what was said, Kamru Chaudhary. He had said that it won't be allowed in public places without permission. And let me tell you this is a norm in several Islamic countries as well. There are designated spots, there are designated places where you can offer namaz publicly out on roads, causing inconvenience to everyone else is not allowed even in other Islamic countries. So I don't think that's a fair argument to make. But speaking about the kind of arguments or the comments that you've said have been made by the ruling dispensation and its members, what about comments that have been made against the Hindu majority community in this country of leaders of the opposition? And are you saying, if you believe in what this report says, are you saying India should be tagged along with countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan?
Absolutely wrong. It should not be tagged. But this report serves as a mirror to the establishment in India. Look, are we doodh ka dhula hua? No, we need to introspect. We need to say, are our minorities safe? The state has conjured in bringing up numerous bills which directly affects the Muslim population or the religious minorities in the country. Let me cite you just two states. In Gujarat, you have got the Disturbed Area Act, wherein a Muslim cannot buy a house in a Hindu majority locality. In Assam, you have got all the madrasas which were imparting Islamic education were banned and closed in one single day by a legislation. You have got now the
legislation which has been brought in by state assemblies of elected representatives.
That's what I'm telling. The state is.
These are representatives that have been elected to be there by the people of that state.
Poonam, can I finish? Can I finish, please? Poonam, I am not speaking about some religious bigot out here like T. Raja or some XYZ who has been spewing venom against the minority communities in the country. But I am directly.
And like I pointed out, what about if that was venom? And sure it was. What about the kind of venom when Saratan was tagged, dengue, malaria, and epidemic was the AIDS?
Poonam, if you have heard me across various news channels, I've criticized that also. Because I do not have any right to vilify your religion, your practices, your culture. neither do you have any right to question my faith and my practice.
Sure.
The state is a secular state and it should be seen as facilitating or keeping equidistant from all religious practices. You shower flower petals from the helicopters on Kawar Yatriyas. You make them green roads on Kawaris going around, on Shobha Jatras of various religious functions of the Hindus. But you object to the people offering namaz on the streets just because they do not have space inside the mosque.
And that same argument, Kamru Chaudhary, can be turned on its head if you take the example of, say, West Bengal, where because the Muharram procession had to pass on, Durga Puja pandals were asked to not take part in their festivities or take part in their immersion at that particular time. So those examples can be found in multiple places in different states, and sure, in India we can discuss that, but should an organization like this be lecturing us and tagging us with countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan and want the FATF, which is supposed to be looking at terror financing, to come out and review us? Is that what is required? Why should we be giving credence to a report like that?
Now, Poonam, you can anywhere tag such a report as part of a propaganda or part of a machinery which belongs to the Soros gang, XYZ and all this. There are numerous reports which have praised India also. Like today's report of international level organization, which has praised Modi government when he says that the social sector reforms are much better. From 24% penetration in 2021, it has reached 48% social reforms. So you take one report that accurately cites what you call labor law reforms that are being done in, or social sector reforms, but you want to discount this because it is critical of the Narendra Modi government. This is, I believe, hypocritical out here. And
I don't think it's being discounted because it is critical of a particular government. Sushant saying it's being discounted because of its track record, because it has not provided any proof of the claims that it has made over the years in several of these reports.
Look, that's quite clearly the case, and of course it also reflects the double standards which are there in the American system. So for example, they've written about the OCI cards. Now this coming from a country where the green cards of people are being cancelled and even the visas are being cancelled because they had participated in some protest. Now I don't deny the right of that country to do that, but since when has an OCI card become a license to abuse India? And since when has it become a right? So that is one. Secondly, Mr. Kamruzaman Chaudhary is, as usual, he misrepresented earlier also on your program and spoke something which was not entirely true. And he's done it again on a number of other issues. But for example, he talks about state sanction of the violence that has taken place. So is he saying that the Congress government in the past, when there were riots in Meerut, in Malyana, in Ahmedabad, in Bhiwandi, in Bhagalpur, in Bombay, in virtually every big city and town of this country, that was state sanctioned? Was the Congress party organizing those riots? Probably they were. I don't know. Mr. Kamruzaman Chaudhary, maybe because of his political affiliations, might not agree. Thirdly, on this whole issue of people don't have space, so they will come out on the streets, they will block entire highways and offer their Eid namaz. Why should you practice your religion? I have no problems with anybody practicing his religion in the privacy of his home or his religious place. But why should he come out in the public space and spoil everybody else's mood and inconvenience everybody else by coming out in the public space? Why should that be allowed? Now, if you want to carry out a procession, please seek permission and carry out a procession. I don't have a problem with that. Then the proper bandobast is made and things move on. Then he talks about, showering petals on the Kawad Yatra. I have no use for it. But look, this is the same government which also gives a Hajj subsidy. I don't see Kamruzaman Chaudhary having a complaint against that. They do many other things. They give scholarships, special scholarships for minority kids. They don't do it for majority community children. So there are special rights which are given to minority communities insofar as their religious places are concerned. They don't have a problem with that discriminatory treatment, but they seem to have a problem if supposing something is done for a Hindu yatra or some Hindu procession. I am against both, but the point is that is the way the state is functioning. Now, if Mr. Kamruzaman Chaudhary is well within his right, it's a free country, he can pick and choose whatever suits his convenience. But we have seen that reports like this are part of a much deeper, sinister agenda, which was being carried out under the Biden administration.
And that's something we Indians need to be wary of before using that as a political tool against political rivals. And that's something that cannot be, that shouldn't be the norm. Unfortunately, I'm completely out of time and I have to leave it there. I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here on The Right Stand. Speaking of the United States, Donald Trump's tariff deadline of the 2nd of April nears. The US president has now announced a 25% tariff on all auto imports. Negotiations are on between India and United States for a bilateral trade agreement. Top government sources say that the talks on this agreement are unfolding well. We have another day of the delegation spending here in India and we'll likely find out what comes out of it tomorrow. India, though, has agreed to cut certain tariffs on some produce, agriculture produce, some organic chemicals as well. India may also cut tariffs on automobile components and American whiskey. That's what we're learning from our sources. Experts in the Indian auto sector, however, hope that the growth of the electric vehicle sector may offset any potential setback. So what would this mean if this 25% tariff, the 25% tariff on auto that is now kicked in and the reciprocal tariffs that he's threatened from the 2nd of April? How can India navigate that? Here's a ready deck now.
Auto stocks were under pressure in today's trade, and this on the back of announcement by US President Donald Trump. He announced that he would be imposing 25% tariffs on all the auto cars that are not made in the US. Also, as per reports, tariffs can be imposed on auto parts as well, and these tariffs will be effective April 2. So which all Indian companies will be impacted? First on the list is Tata Motors. US is one of the important markets for JLR, which forms nearly 30% of its total volumes. But the important point is JLR does not have the production facility in the US, and all the cars that JLR sells in the US market are imported from other countries. Also, JLR forms nearly 70% of Tata Motors' consolidated revenue, and due to this tariff, impact can be of more than 20%. Second in the list is Samvardhana Motherson. This company won't be impacted directly, but it would be impacted indirectly as Samvardhana Motherson supplies auto parts to those automakers which export cars to US market, and here the impact is seen in the range of 6 to 7%. Next in the list is companies related to auto parts, because reports suggest tariffs can come on auto parts as well, and here first one is Balkrishna Industries, for which nearly 17% revenue comes from the US market, and second in the list is Sona BLW, for which US forms nearly 43% of its total revenue. Last one is bike and truck segment. As of now, US government has not announced any tariff, but if US government announces tariff, first in the list is Royal Enfield, Eicher Motors Royal Enfield, for which 2 to 3% of total volumes come from the US market, so this company can be impacted. Second in the list is Bharat Forge, for which North America forms nearly 40% to its total standalone revenue. And last in that list is Ramkrishna Forging, for which North America contributes nearly 30% to its total revenue. So these are some of the Indian companies which might be impacted due to US auto tariffs.
It's a wrap from my side here on this edition of The Right Stand, but a quick reminder, you can discover the power of young Bharat at the Rising Bharat Summit 2025. That's where innovation, ambition and vision will converge. This is your exclusive chance to gain insights from global visionaries. Jeffrey Sachs, one of the world's most respected economists, will be at Bharat's Rising Summit. He will be talking about India's role in a changing global order. It's all happening here in the national capital in Bharat Mandapam on the 8th and 9th of April. You can book your passes now.
Co-powered by
Donald Trump says China could get a discount on tariffs if it agrees to a US takeover of TikTok. He floated the idea in comments Wednesday.
Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok.
TikTok parent firm ByteDance has an April 5th deadline to find a non-Chinese buyer for the short video app. Otherwise, it will face a US ban over national security concerns. That had been due to kick in just before Trump took office, but the new president delayed enforcement until April. With some 170 million users in the US, TikTok's fate is a big concern for many Americans. But getting Beijing's approval for any deal has always looked like a sticking point. Trump has repeatedly used tariffs as a bargaining chip and has imposed a new 20% levy on Chinese exports since returning to power. Now he thinks China might find a discount offer tempting.
Sounds like something I do.
Vice President J.D. Vance has said he expects the general terms of an agreement to be in place by April 5th. There was no immediate comment on Trump's incentive offer from TikTok.
Another round of tariffs from President Trump before the big one due on April the 2nd. Trump has announced now a 25% tariff on all car imports into the US that he said will go into effect on April the 2nd and that he would begin to start charging the following day. These tariffs would be on top of the tariffs already in place and already announced. The US administration believes that this tax on automobiles will bring in at least $100 billion of new revenue every year, and Trump has said these taxes on automobiles will be permanent. The to follow will be tax benefit offers to American buyers of cars built in the US. But this is not going to be a simple and straight tariff. A lot of the cars imported into the US come from Canada and Mexico, and these have components made in the US, and that he said will be proportionally factored into the 25% tariff. The tariffs will be reduced in proportion to the value of an imported car's American-built components. This opens up a nightmare world of certification and accounting. On the other hand, to add to this, the tariff will apply to non-American components of cars built in the US. This would then be a decision particularly hard to implement. It is not clear who will police this, who will carry out inspection and certification of every car or even every lot of cars along these lines, and what the cost of all this would add up to. The automakers most severely hit will be from Mexico, where the US imported about 3 million cars last year worth about $78.5 billion. Then Japan and South Korea with about 1.5 million cars each sent to the US, Canada with 1 million, Germany with 500,000, and as expected the German cars have been on average the costliest. These 500,000 were worth about $25 billion. Exporters in all of these countries could now see a significant fall in sales, and consumers in the US a significant rise in the price of cars, which could lead to far reduced sales, which would hardly help the US economy. The silver lining on Wednesday was the announcement by Trump that come April the 2nd, he is inclined to be lenient with many countries and more lenient than he thinks they have been with the US. And many no doubt hope that will include India.
Donald Trump says China could get a discount on tariffs if it agrees to a US takeover of TikTok. He floated the idea in comments Wednesday.
Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok.
TikTok parent firm ByteDance has an April 5th deadline to find a non-Chinese buyer for the short video app. Otherwise, it will face a US ban over national security concerns. That had been due to kick in just before Trump took office, but the new president delayed enforcement until April. With some 170 million users in the US, TikTok's fate is a big concern for many Americans. But getting Beijing's approval for any deal has always looked like a sticking point. Trump has repeatedly used tariffs as a bargain.
Good evening. This is Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. Leader of the opposition Rahul Gandhi has alleged that he is being silenced in the Lok Sabha, that he's not being allowed to speak deliberately by the Speaker. That's the charge. The Speaker, on the other hand, has said that members should maintain the decorum of the House. The BJP started showing a video of Rahul Gandhi pulling the cheeks of his sister and fellow Member of Parliament, Priyanka Gandhi, as he's walking up the stairs from the seat in the lower house. Rahul Gandhi says he wanted to speak when the Prime Minister spoke last week about the Mahakumbh. But every time he stands up, the Speaker disallows him from speaking. The Speaker says, as per Rule 349, all members, and more so the Leader of the Opposition, who's a senior Member of Parliament, is expected to maintain the decorum of the House, which the Speaker says Mr. Gandhi has not. Are both charges valid? Who is playing politics? And more importantly, can the voice of the opposition be suppressed in a democracy, as Mr. Gandhi is alleging his voice is? All right, let's take a look at Mr. Rahul Gandhi's tenure so far as Leader of the Opposition since June of 2024. Mr. Gandhi stepped into the LOP's post after a decade. Remember, there was no Leader of the Opposition. The Congress did not get that because they didn't have enough number of MPs in the Parliament. They have to have 10% at least, but the Congress did not until 2024, when they had 99 seats in that 2024 election. And therefore, Mr. Gandhi, by virtue of those 99 MPs, got to be the Leader of the Opposition. Now, what is the job of the Leader of the Opposition? His singular job is to hold the government's feet to the fire. That is, to ensure that there is accountability for the government and that they can't simply be seen as getting away with it. So then, how is Mr. Gandhi faring in his job? How is he stacking up so far? In the debates that have happened so far in Parliament in the last 8 or 9 months, Mr. Gandhi has clocked 7 appearances, meaning he has taken part in 7 debates. He's either begun those debates or he has intervened in those debates. The national average for any MP in the current